who had sacrificed so much during the war. It was their will that brought about Somaliland. And I think that gives a level of legitimacy. This wasn't some trumped up scheme by a few sort of minority groups who sought for their own reasons to bring about independence for Somaliland. This was the will of the majority, a vast majority of people. So I think that we need to keep reminding ourselves and explaining, as you yourself have done so often to the international community, that this is the justification as to why Somaliland has a legitimacy, a legitimate claim to want to be recognized as an independent state. I also wish very briefly, as you have done, to mention Shirki Borma. I do not ever wish to underestimate the significance, again, in bringing justification for the existence of Somaliland. Shirki Borma was an opportunity where anybody with even the minutest vested interest in the future of Somaliland was able to come, and in that time-honored tradition for Somali people, to be able to stand and debate and express their view and be listened to. It was an exercise in listening as much as it was an exercise in actually people declaring an interest. So do you want me to pause?
Yeah, Karen.
So I think we constantly should remind ourselves of those two particular issues. And also to realize that Somaliland has achieved what it has achieved, not because it has had a lot of support from the international community, quite the opposite. In many, many cases, the international community has actively tried to suppress Somaliland. So I think credit should be given to the people of Somaliland for persisting, because they believe that what they were seeking to achieve, what they are still seeking to achieve, is legitimate. And yet, so often the international community, whether it be United Nations, whether it be foreign governments, whether it be the government in Mogadishu, has tried to hinder the progress of Somaliland. So I think those are very important things to congratulate on this day of celebration, to congratulate Somaliland for having persisted, often in times of great adversity.
Thank you very much indeed, Hamish. And what your point about this very sorry situation of the confusion of Somaliland and, you know, the aid and development, especially in the last few years, having been sort of held up or tampered with, political interference from some Somali governments is an important one of what the international community does about it. And I can see James Carver has joined us. And from your perspective, James, of having been in the European Union and seen that end of it, it would be very good to get your perspective in a moment. But first of all, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Saeed Ibrahim.
Thank you, Rage, and happy 30th anniversary to everybody in Somaliland and across the world. And I think this is a momentous day. It's a day I think a lot of people would never thought they were to see at the time when the civil war was occurring back in 1988. However, I think as you have started the conversation, we're looking to the future. I think, you know, we grew up in an environment where our parents have literally given everything to Somaliland, whatever they had. You know, the mind, the wealth, whatever they've had, they've given everything back. And I think this is a community that from over the past 100 years kind of contributed to vast wealth into Somaliland. And I think for us, for the next generations, I think one of the, you know, what we would like to see is to that development to continue and kind of look to the future, because economic development is what makes you different to another country that has no vision to economic development. And I think relying on aid from UN or whatever it may be, I think will only disable you for long term. So I think the key is to inspire other nations who've only been around for the, you know, maybe 50 to 60 years, who've kind of brought in experts to kind of develop different means to not just the livestock. And I think as we go into the later, you know, the next 10 to 15 years, I think remittance will start to slow down, because obviously generations who've been in the diaspora, some would go back, some would die, some would have no connections to back home. So I think there is a scope that we need to start having a different vision. Closer to home, Cardiff Council was the second council to recognise Somaliland independence in 2015. That didn't came just because Cardiff Council wanted to please the people of Somaliland. It came because the willingness of the people in Cardiff who have driven and empowered and pressured their Cardiff councillors to be able to say, we are a force to be reckoned with, and it's that sustained campaigning that has worked. And I think one thing that I would say to the people of Somaliland is not to give up and not to be diluted into anything. And there will be political interferences. There will be money floating around coming from Mogadishu. There will be the odd advocacy, development. But what I would say is a long-term goal is how you would achieve a nation's prosperity. 30 years of development, 30 years of enjoyment, freedom, 5 different presidents, House of Elders, a parliament, your own money, your own currency, your own development. I mean, that don't come cheap. And, we have to always reflect back on how these achievements came. It came by, as Hamish said earlier, the Bur'a and Borama meetings. They were the ones who've nailed the coffin, who nailed this enjoyment that we have today. So they shouldn't be forgotten. And in those meetings should be hailed as though the future, those who kind of developed this nation. Sorry, Raghi, I've taken too long.
Thanks very much indeed. Sorry to cut you off. It was very eloquent, but luckily the ambassador has been able to sort of join us. Ambassador Hirsi in Hargeisa, welcome. Please take the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abdi Abdullahi Hirsi. I am the representative of the Somaliland UK Mission. Good afternoon to you all. I'm very pleased to be in this virtual Zoom meeting with you, and I would like to thank you all for joining us here today. Also, I want to thank the Somaliland UK Mission staff who arranged this virtual conference to reinforce Somaliland's image as a viable country capable for social and economic change. Allow me to convey to you warm greetings from His Excellency Musa Bihi Abdi, President of the Republic of Somaliland, on his name to thank you all for joining us at this virtual meeting about Somaliland's statehood. 18 May is the day Somaliland declared its reaffirmation of independence from Somalia on May 18, 1991. And its 30th anniversary is being celebrated this year as of today, 2021. During that time, Somaliland and its people worked tirelessly to rebuild the country and establish a democratic system of governance with peaceful transference of power and economic prosperity. Somaliland provides an interesting example, as we see it, of how to create lasting peace and stability through bottom-up grassroots community engagement. Somaliland has created more relationships with international communities, including Kenya, Taiwan, UAE, Malawi, South Africa, Czech Republic, Republic of Guinea, and we have almost 21 representatives around the world. We're also expecting to form relationships with other countries very soon. In the preparation for the upcoming election, on both local council and parliamentary elections is scheduled on 31st of May, 2021, it's one of the Somaliland's priority to deliver a transparent, secure, credible, and inclusive election on 31st of May, 2021. Finally, Somaliland is ready to further fortify its economic, security, and democratic development ties with African countries, North American countries, European countries, and particularly our main partner, the United Kingdom. So, very welcome to you all. I hope you will enjoy our celebrity meeting of today. I just want to say, my fellow British Somalilanders, I wish you prosperity and happy 18 May anniversary. Thank you to all.
Raga informed me he had a meeting to go to, so the chair responsibility falls into Mohammed Boss.
We'll continue. What I will really start with now is Toby Kenyon.
Yes, Toby Kenyon speaking. I'm very glad to be invited here, and
Yes.
it is a great honor to be part of Somaliland again. I had 2 wonderful years at Hargeisa University, and that introduced me to the Somali people, and I lived for a year with Dr. Mohammed Musa Hassan when he was finishing his time at the university, and now he's chairman of the Somaliland Medical Association. And he has come here and also been to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And I have supported him with his endeavors for the Somaliland Medical Association. My interest goes back to 1959, when I was accepted for the Somaliland Scouts. And ever since then, like 1959, I followed Somaliland very, very carefully. And my impression is that Somaliland is better ready for nationhood than most countries in Africa. Possibly the island of Mauritius has an equal government, but apart from Mauritius, Somaliland stands out in Africa, in the African Union, as a stable, well-governed country. I go back to the Montevideo Convention of 1933 under the League of Nations. That occasion was demanding that all countries comply with 4 items, wherever they are in the world, that they should have a stable population, a government that can manage and have relations with other countries, and the 4th item, that they should have frontiers and borders which are known. Your borders in Somaliland were defined with the elders and the sheikhs in the year 1888, before I was born, but it was a time when the frontiers were known and they remained constant ever since. And there's no question that Somaliland has stable, well-known frontiers throughout the world, and particularly in Somalia. So Somalia cannot in any way claim that Somaliland has lost part of its sovereignty. It is a country which has frontiers, and it has a government, has relations with other people, and it has a stable government. So Somaliland meets all that is required under the League of Nations, which was then followed into the United Nations. The United Nations are fearful of interfering with other countries. But it is time now, after 30 successful years, for the world to take note of the fact that Somaliland is a nation as good as South Sudan, as good as Kosovo, and as good as many other countries that have been created sovereign nations in our time. And therefore Somaliland has very good relations with all its neighbors, and that is proved by the fact that it is peacefully acknowledged. Somalia must accept the fact that it stops bullying, stops the blackmail, stops enforcing on Somaliland a position of inferiority. Somaliland is equal to all other nations in the United Nations, just as Somalia and just as Britain, my own country. We are all equal, and we are all able to share this world together and help make improvements where we can. Somaliland is an outstanding nation. It is in the vital strategic area of the Aden area and the Red Sea and the Gulf, and it must therefore hold an important geographical position. As well as that, it has an education, particularly with the Darlington Foundation, and developed from the wonderful Sheikh School and other good schools. And from there, we have students going on into other countries and proving themselves to be good neighbors of all other people. And for that reason, I am glad to be able to speak from my knowledge and my experience of the success of Somaliland. Thank you very much for asking me to speak.
I think Mohammed has an issue with the internet. Is it possible if Abdurrahman, if you could continue sharing until the connection comes back? Is it possible? Is Abdul Rashid speaking here?
Yes, thank you, Abdul Rashid. It's a challenge. You've passed me on a challenge. Nevertheless, challenges help us grow. Please remind me.
Or should I do it because I got the agenda at the front of me?
Certainly, yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, Toby. That was really is wonderful to hear from you, and it's really even for someone who's a Somalilander. It's absolutely amazing what you just you've given me a lesson. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now next is a good friend of Somaliland. He used to be a member of the European Parliament, and he's absolutely, every time you speak to him, he's always talking about Somaliland in a way that, you know, is enthusiastic, it is refreshing, it is, you know, someone who has, you know, the right, you know, his heart belongs in the right place towards Somaliland. And without further ado, Councillor James Carver will be next. And I'm sure you know, it just basically is how could you support with the recognition of Somaliland going forward? James?
Thank you, Abdi Rashid. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for this kind invitation to speak. This is an issue very close to my heart, and I try to go off at a tangent. I don't like to talk about recognition. I like to talk about re-recognition, because although today we celebrate the 30th anniversary of independence, of course, Somaliland is lucky to enjoy 2 Independence Days. And if we go back 61 years to the 26th of June 1960, you're spoiled. You want 2 Independence Days. So I talk about re-recognition because I think that actually, when you use that word re-recognition, it makes people think. They think, well, if they've already been recognised, why do they need recognition again? And of course, and then that leads onto the tragedy, you know, of the Isaac genocide and how we got to where we got. And speaking as a proud British subject, I feel that it would be remiss if the United Kingdom were the first country to recognise Somaliland as an independent nation at the United Nations. And the reason I say that is because I think it plays into the hands of our opponents, those who say, oh, the colonial master, you know, has given her puppy. You know, we can hear the responses if the United Kingdom were to recognise formally an independent Somaliland again. And something I've counselled privately to many Somalilanders at all levels, it needs to come from a fellow African Union member. It needs to come through the African Union. I feel that is an important way, because certainly from my time in European Parliament, it was very much the issue of South Sudan, of Somaliland, and other such areas, even Biafra. You know, there's many different causes, very different causes, of which Somaliland's cause has far greater merit, I believe, than any other. It was always in such a way as well, this has to be a solution given by Africans. It has to come from Africa. And I think, you know, a federation such as the European Union is never, quite frankly, going to offer formal recognition and bring to the end another federation, the Federation of Somalia. They would never do that. So I feel that we have a duty really to talk about education. Many people, regrettably, not enough, still don't understand the difference between Somalia and Somaliland. Many people know about, obviously, the Holocaust, the Shoah from the Second World War, from the Nazis, what was perpetrated on a European Jewish community. People know about Srebrenica. People know about the Balkans. People know about the Civil War. They know about the atrocities carried out there. Not so many people know, or if they do know, understand about the Isaac genocide. And I think that is a message that is very, very important, because we're talking about a basic human right here, you know. And whilst it is important, we always remember what happened with the Shoah, with the Jewish Holocaust. They said never again, and yet again we saw it in Cambodia, we saw it in Bosnia, and we've seen it in Somaliland as well. So we need to actually reinforce that evil is still happening in many, many places, even at this moment in other parts of the world. We hear of the problems with the Burmese Muslims. You know, we hear of problems in many other parts of the world. But I think it is a stark message if we can actually educate people to understand about the Isaac genocide and understand the desire to be treated very differently by the Somaliland people, and why they chose to take the route we took with regards to going independent. And that is a very strong message. And I think if people who don't necessarily are not versed with the story of Somaliland and where we are, how we've got to where we are today, they may not understand really the pain and the suffering and the achievements that have been achieved. So I feel we have a duty for the diaspora, and of course a very important duty for the next generation of the diaspora as well. You know, I speak to Somalilanders who have that next generation now who feel less Somalilander and more British, which is a good thing, but you should never forget your roots. And it is important that generation after generation has a duty to learn from the sufferings, the successes of previous generations, and ensure that those are kept fresh in people's memories. With regards to Somaliland in itself, I think what has been achieved is incredible. Even in the past few years, you know, what we have now emerging with up in Berbera, it's something that couldn't have been dreamed of. You know, with the road through to Ethiopia. These are dreams that many people thought of for many, many years, and I think tribute has to be paid to the tenacity of Somalilanders over many years to get to this situation now, where we have these huge infrastructure projects, which actually really underline confidence in Somaliland as a nation. So what we must build on that confidence as a nation, and then move forward and actually start using diplomatic ties to push for formal recognition. People will always be cagey because of the example of South Sudan, but Somaliland is nothing like South Sudan. Very, very different. It's a very different, and legal basis, as Toby spoke of earlier, is there for itself. You know, we can go back to the Montevideo Convention of the League of Nations. It's there for everybody to see, and Somaliland, to my mind, has fulfilled those obligations over many, many years. And perhaps Somalilanders have, I won't say complacent, but have been comfortable in their own success. That maybe by doing what was done 30 years ago, so many Somalilanders feel independent. We're celebrating Independence Day today. But let that not turn into complacency. where we may be comfortable with where Somaliland is, but that doesn't mean to say we do not stop the emphasis. And maybe by being comfortable, actually we need to take a step back and look at a different approach. But I feel with the infrastructure projects that are going on in Somaliland, the way diplomatic relations have been developed with Taiwan, for example, I feel that was a masterstroke. I really, really do. I think Somaliland's in a very strong position, but we must keep that emphasis moving.
Thank you, James. That's really is good points you've raised, and it actually brings nicely to the next point, which is coming back to the diaspora community and how the diaspora community will continue with the role of their contribution towards Somaliland, and also continue with the legacy here. And I'm gonna invite newly elected, fantastic news coming out from Sheffield, Councillor Sophia. Okay, but Barawi, you all know her. She was a community activist, and now she's a councillor, and I'm really proud of her. So you're next. If you could say a few words in regards to how we could link with back home and also here.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I greet you all today proudly to have a double blessings, the 30th of the anniversary and my first time ever being elected as a Labour councillor here in the area. I just want to emphasize the point that I was born in Dubai and brought up here. I always went back to Somaliland. I've sent my children to Somaliland for many years to learn Quran and culture. There are so many, I work with a lot of services and young people, and the Somalilanders I see, they're always seeking how they can go back home without the line of being punished. So they used to call me the punishing officer. So if any of my children became very naughty, I sort of send them to this thing we call Dakan Ellis, which is absolutely rubbish. You go back home to feel safe. You go back home to sit with your grandparents. You go back home so you could enjoy the weather. You go back home so you can eat fresh fruit and fresh air. You go back home to learn where your focus is, where your passion could be, to see people less fortunate than you in welfare, in education, in benefits. But at the same time, you celebrate the stressless relief that back home feels. People are less whiny, less complain. If they do complain and they do fight, it's for the element of clean water or the food, but not like here. So it doesn't matter how comfortable we are, but back in UK, back home always needs us and needs our expertise and effort. But we have a lack of generation gap, that is parents or people in this system is not encouraging kids to go back home once a year, or once every 3 years or something, whatever is affordable. And at the same time, I would like the diaspora over there in Somaliland to have some sort of a coordinating support to take the people that have newly arrived, to teach them the historical spots in Somaliland and why they're there. So a lot of tour guiding would be amazing. Interaction look after are through violence, and it's a lot of knife crime, and most of them are identity lost, and it starts like that. And I've always worked alongside Saeed, councillor in Cardiff, and we're going through the same problems. So my issue isn't UK. My issue is when we do come to Somaliland, we would love to have some sort of a support or welcoming, or some sort of a, people that identify that, whether it's at the airport and says, are you interested to come to certain center or certain hotel, and just have a conversation about how to start your tour around Somaliland. But, if you have got a fantastic experience, I've got lots of friends there. My sister lives there. So I've been a very, very lucky one. and my children have been lucky one, but inshallah, we want to put more passionate on the young people, this generation that are born in UK. We want to give them the passion of what is Somaliland. We want them explaining how independent we become, and you know, how many people have lost their lives for us to be who we are today, and to move away negatively about separation of Qabil, and to move that, you know, we're all Somalilanders, we all need to be on each other's platforms, and how we could pick each other up to the top. And that comes with empowering a lot of females, empowering the future mothers, the future wives, the future game changers, the gatekeepers, which are women, you know. And this is one of the reasons I became a counsellor, is because a lot of people were stopping the resources to come to my area. So I thought, if I can come up with a platform, I can help that resources to empower my people. And one of the people are the parents, you know, our single moms that live here, our girls that are going to university, our girls that are number one in their colleges, in their school, but they need some mentor, and they need some sort of a leadership. But they need to see Rhoda, Nora, myself, Europe, a lot of people that they can look up to, say, if they can do it, we can do it. You know, we are second generation here. So English isn't my first language, but for them, English is first language. So let's not think about ourselves today, because we are very much enriched with the history of let's think about the new generations that are coming. How do we empower them? What Somali classes are in Sheffield and Cardiff and London? What is the Hidir Dakan in Somaliland, in Sheffield, Birmingham and everything? How can we continue to celebrate the achievement we have? Thank you so much.
I would like to say congratulations to Somaliland. Hambalyo, hambalyo, hambalyo. So Dungurada, 30 years. Somaliland's very young, but it's actually very old at the same time. How lucky we are to be both. As boss, I welcome you and our ambassador, ambassador's team, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all. Today we're talking about 30 years of Somaliland. Now, I can't talk about 30 years of Somaliland. I'm going to talk about what I know in the last 10 years of Somaliland, because I've only been involved in Somaliland for the last 10 years. And it accelerated my education, the love for my country. And I wanted to share the love for the home that I have now, which is Birmingham, and the love that I have for Somaliland, and how I wanted to connect both together. I worked around for many years in institutions across local government and civil servant. And I realized that I used to go every year on holiday with my friends to many different countries, which were fabulous. But they asked me a question one day, and they said, when are we going to your country? And inside I had an inkling of confusion, because nobody ever asked me that. Nobody ever asked me where I'm from. Nobody was ever interested in where I was from. So it intrigued me to do a bit of research. And I found that Somaliland was not recognized, that it needed recognition. And fast track that a couple of years. I lobbied in the past 5 years for Somaliland to be recognized in Birmingham. It took quite a lot of cultural awareness, as James said, and education. So we started with the Birmingham Museum, and we had the first Somaliland artifact in Birmingham Museum through a partnership with the museum. That gave conversations around the culture, the clothing, the food, and elected members were very intrigued. We had many different conversations around this issue. And the one question that I was asked when Birmingham City Council cross-party was recognizing Somaliland was, why should we recognize Somaliland? And my answer to that was, is my name not Noura? And they said, yes. Am I alive? And they said, yes. And do I have a place that I come from? Yes. And that place is Somaliland? Yes. So you recognize it exists? Yes. So why can't you recognize us in a way so we can get resources that we need to support you and support us? And that was the conversation that made it happen. And Birmingham City Council, cross-party, recognized Somaliland. But that didn't stop me from taking a further journey. And in 2021, this year, just a month ago, I was elected as Somaliland Society in Europe's president. Now, that was a very good gesture of Somaliland communities. And that was because the institutions themselves recognized that they needed somebody like myself who understood Britain and who understood British values, but are also one of their own. Because you can only convince people, because the art of a conviction is when you know someone, when you know what they like, what they don't like, when you know how they understand. That's when you can convince a human being to accept what you want and accept what you are. And that is what I have done. And that is what I'm going to share, or I'd like to share today as 30 years. And I'd like to say that we need to have the art of conviction, the art of education, the art of friendship. And we need to actually make sure that people who are representing the country understand the art of friendship and conviction. When you want something, you have to be able to do it voluntarily. Everything you do is not paid work. There's lots of hours that have been put into a lot of people who've made effort in the past that have never been paid. And that is where they will get success, and that's where we will get success. So just like Sophia, Abdurrahman, the ambassador, everyone in this room, we give our time voluntary. Somaliland needs to create that on a 24-hour basis. And when you do that, you will succeed. You will get recognized. You will get value. You will start creating trade relationships. And I would also like to say that Birmingham is the city that's going to be hosting the Commonwealth Games. And of course, that is going to be an incredible year because it will be the 70th year since Queen Elizabeth has been on the throne. So there will be lots of opportunity for Somaliland members of the UK to lobby other African countries, as James says, as we will have 4,000 heads of state here, and also create a platform for your culture to be celebrated. What makes you different from Somalia? Is it your food? Is it your clothes? Is it your music? Is it your writing? Is it your poetry? Is it your land? Is it the sand? What makes you different? And that distinction is the way that you will get recognition. And I'd also like to say thank you, everyone, for coming today, getting us together. And I would like to say Hambalia, Hambalia, Hambalia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Noura Ali. I must congratulate Noura Ali for her elevation, for her promotion to a chairman of Somaliland Society in Europe. She's an active Somalilander, very active Somalilander in Britain. My next guest to speak is Abdurrashid Hirat. Please welcome to the floor, Mr. Abdurrashid.
Hi everyone, my name is Abdurrashid Hirat, and probably from my Welsh accent you could tell that I'm one of those who've been here for many years. Us and a number of us were born here in Newport in Gwent, and we grew up with the spirit of community from the old seafarers and the dockers and the steelworkers and from Sheffield to Newport to Cardiff to London to Liverpool and South Shields. And what these elderly gentlemen and also the few ladies, mothers who are here, have taught us is to be a community, is to be together, is to be Somalilanders. You know, I remember my first demonstration. It was 1981, where I know Abdul Karim is probably on the call. We organized a demo at Great Portland Street when our people were tortured and imprisoned, and the situation was sliding down. And what we did was I remember clearly how we used to travel. We used to have 2 coaches coming from Cardiff, and then they will come past Newport. You would have 1 coach coming from Liverpool, and then you would have 1 coach for probably South Shields and Yorkshire, and then you will have the contingent from London, and we all used to meet, and there was only 2,000 of us, and those 2,000 of us, the elderly will have their meeting, council will get together. We didn't know who was who, what was what, but we were all one big massive family who adored these gentlemen and ladies who taught us the value of being Somalilanders. And then moving on, we had, I'm just going back to the history. We had the issue in terms of the war. I remember clearly, as a young man, I said to myself, I need to volunteer. And I volunteered with Abdul Karim, who was at that time running a project in West Peak Street in Cardiff. And now I did not know who was who and where was what, but all I remember is our people from in Hargeisa, in Bora, and all over Somaliland were displaced and fled to places I've never heard of, but I could tell you still, I still remember. And this is 1988, 89, 90, 91. You know, places like Kamapaka, Harda Sheikh, Harshin, Dul'at, Daror, all these refugee camps, you know, were all of a sudden people were coming from different areas of Somaliland to go and stay in these refugee camps. And then we said to ourselves, as the generation who would help their uncles and fathers, we said to ourselves, what do we need to do? And luckily we had people like Alan Michael.
Could I just say something for a minute?
Yeah.
Abdi Rashid spoke about the sacrifice of Somalilanders for the United Kingdom over the years. And here's a set of medals to a Somalilander who served in both the Second World War and actually Second World War medals there. And that medal at the end is a South Atlantic medal. So he served in the Falklands War as well. So this gentleman was a merchant seaman who served in World War II and came back out of retirement to serve during the Falklands War as a merchant seaman again. So I think that's a good indicator for proud Somalilanders who have given so much back.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm really sorry about that. I got cut off. I just want to finish. I don't want to sort of like drone on, but as a role of the community going forward, what we have now within our community is that generation and the generation after are now in a position to lead this re-recognition, and you know, so we have barristers, we have teachers, we have medical professionals, we have engineers, we have so many. So the community has actually moved on, and I think one of the things that I want to leave with this meeting, and I just want to say is, we as an action point for us here, we need to create a network, a platform for these individuals, for the youngsters who are out there, who are professionals by trade, to come together and create a place where they could meet up like minded ideas and develop Somaliland. And not only that, also to help with the effort of re-recognition of Somaliland. That's one point. The other point is, I've been involved in politics for a long time. And one of the things is, and I know a lot of politicians, and for us as Somalilanders in this country, we need to be politically active. We need to vote, we need to register. We need to know who our local councillors are. We need to know who our local MPs are. We need to know who those people who are the decision makers. And that way we will be able to influence decisions and also raise awareness of Somaliland brand, Somaliland recognition. Again, further, in Tower Hamlets, we were the third borough to recognize Somaliland. And again, it was a wonderful achievement, and we will continue to work with the mission. We will continue to volunteer, and we will continue to come together and get hopefully help with this recognition and engagement with not only back home but with the community here. Thank you so much for making me take part and contributing towards this meeting. That's all for me.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Abdul Rashid, and my apology for cutting you off, midway. Now, the music will start. Noor Dala's song. Noor, as you know, Noor Dala is one of the most prominent singers in our country, and he will sing for us.
Where's your flag? Hamish, where's your flag? Here you go, James.
من حكيلو تبدحي هذا لو دردلي ايو كاف مدربا من حكيلو تبدحي هذا لو دردلي ايو كاف مدربا كان درس وناقيو لا 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 إنا لبطلونيو سمو آلو تيقنو وهايت الهيمون تنمو بيكو ياسين كان درس وناقيو إنا لبطلونيو سمو آلو تيقنو وهايت الهيمون El casare verso dumi, el casare verso dumi, el casare verso dumi, el casare verso dumi, el casare verso dumi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noor Dala. Very refreshing, you know. I have to start again with the program, and the next one is my favorite young man, Abdurrahman. Where are you? Please,
I'm here.
welcome to the floor.
I'm not far away. Thank you very much, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very fortunate to be surrounded by juggernauts like yourselves. Well, Somaliland Day, it's always the second Eid, you know. So I'm very, very chuffed. I'm very lucky to be here and, you know, to share this great platform with like-minded champions like yourselves. My story goes back to what James McCarver said, and of course to what Abdul Rashid Hirat said. So it starts with the Somaliland genocide. I'm one of the lucky survivors. You know, I remember when the whole event kicked off back in the 88, 89. I think I was about 4 or 5 years old, something like that. But I have this memory just leaving without luggage, you know. Everything was on the stove, kettle was boiling, we just had to go and leave. And to where? God knows where. The sky was littered with bullets, you know, it was just an inferno, you can argue. And we lived close to the airport, and the airplanes used to take off from that very same airport and destroy the same city like never seen before. When you look at what's happening in the Middle East, at least you get an 1 hour warning. We'd never had 1 hour warning, you know. It's just you on your own, you know, you just survive and walking with slippers to God knows where. So just to remind ourselves and to put the context of the journey of Somaliland, I was one of the lucky survivors, having left with my mother and sister, and at the end, only surviving by myself. Mom dying due to yellow fever, you know, and that killed a lot of people in places like Kamabokor, Dul'ad. So I can proudly say I'm one of the graduates of those refugee camps. Flash forward 30 years, amazing community that we are part of here in Birmingham that has welcomed us, which is the second biggest city in the UK. And His Excellency Mubarak, who's also from, you know, a native Birmingham or a Brummy, shall we say, is also here. There's a lot of people that I recognize here. So that's basically the journey that we've had. And of course, there's a lot of work to be done to ensure we keep that memory, you know, that enshrine it, to ensure we connect. If you go back to Churchill's famous words, the further you look back in history, the further we can go forward. So I think it's very, very important to look back as well, what we have overcome and the milestones we have reached so far. And, you know, and to be grateful for communities that have adopted us, has given us second homes, and we're part of that fabric. So that is my journey in terms of Somaliland, the question you asked was the role of diaspora. If I answer that question, the role of diaspora is, it's good, but it can be better. I compare ourselves with the previous diaspora, the first generations that have arrived, more or less, or the first, Somalilanders, so to say. They were incredible. But we can see we're hitting some sort of a plateau in terms of the contribution that we do as a collective. Now it's more individuals who have been successful in their journeys and who are doing more, with the notable examples such as Ahmed Ismail from World Remit, just to name a few. And there's a couple of us as well who are doing things, individually, which is great. But His Excellency Abdi Hirsi has done incredible work of connecting the satellite diaspora communities across the UK, and of course our predecessor as well, Ayan. So it's great to see the ambassadors that we have recognized the importance of connecting these jewels, or connecting these communities. And as a result, we meet regularly, we are volunteers, we give our time and resources to ensure we get the job done, for the communities that we represent, whether in the UK or home. An example of some of the achievement we've done collectively is the COVID-19 diaspora, funding and collections of funding, and we've sent a truck. And I hope you can help us with whatever challenges that comes along our way. Team Somaliland has been born out of this collaboration. To answer Abdi Rashid's point, in terms of we need a platform. Yes, we have a platform. Please work with us and connect with us, because in every city we have a beacon, we have a representative, whether it's Cardiff, whether it's Manchester, whether it's Birmingham, whether it's Sheffield, whether it's London, Bristol. So we have all of these satellite centers where we have champions who are doing their best, representing their communities. And the challenges, of course, exist. And one of the best ways to tackle the challenges is through dialogue, having the space, the virtual space, the physical space. One challenge that we have had over the years is community centers are no longer here, but through owning, through starting our own ventures and businesses, we've established this college behind me, Midlands College of Commerce. Our mission is to champion knowledge and education for the UK population, as well as the Somaliland population. Our landlord is basically a Somalilander who has given us this building for a fantastic price. And at the same time, as a college, we want to give our diaspora the opportunity to use our facilities free of charge. So again, to ask the question, or to answer your question, the diaspora, are we working together? Well, you have heard what I've just said. I've given you a little taste of what we have achieved so far. Inshallah, this coming Saturday, we will also have another discussion where we will reach out the public for them to engage and celebrate with us. So inshallah, on Saturday, we will also have an event where we have your conversation with the wider communities. So I'm going to shut up, otherwise I'll continue talking. Chairman, you have the mic.
Thank you, Abdurrahman. I must not forget that so many British Somalilander educated have moved to Somaliland and is rebuilding. They are so prominent in our country, thanks to Britain. I must say that Sir Alan Michael will be the last, and he's the one who will give us a lot of thoughts about what we achieved the last 30 years. But before that, allow me, with your patience, that Rhoda Ibrahim will speak. Please come to the floor, Ms. Rhoda.
Assalamu alaikum for all of you. Eid Mubarak. Yeah, Eid Mubarak twice. Eid Mubarak for the Eid of Ramadan and this Eid of the 30th anniversary of Somaliland. And I really don't want to say a lot because the role of the 30 years, I was one of the first diaspora to go back to Somaliland in 1994 to take part for the rebuilding of the country as an NGO, as head of an NGO then, British NGO. And I was actually also, as Abdurrahman was saying, one of the survivors from the war, if I could really say. I came here as a refugee. But somehow I don't call myself a diaspora after 30 years. I'm a British Somalilander. I have to tell you that because I have been living in this part of the country, in this part of the world for most of my life. And whenever I was going back as a British, traveling with a British passport. So I actually am useful as a British Somalilander than a diaspora. A lot has been said by most of the people, and I have been involved in the country even before the war. The only person who I could think that we had that journey together is Hamish Wilson. Hamish Wilson, I have met him in 1986 for the first time when he came to the country as a young person. And Hamish is also the son of the only Brit who got the Victoria Cross, who fought in the Second World War. So it's really more than 40 years now that we are rolling out to actually contribute to the country that's now Somaliland, and we are really struggling. So we are still continuing. We will never spare that. So the only thing that I'm leaving you with it is really, we need to be really exact what we are asking. It's no more. It's 30 years now. So the next 30 years we are not going to wait. So, and we have got some initiatives that we are already started now with the young people. I am the oldest. Those are young, educated people, really. So yeah. And thanks for the Somaliland Mission in here for facilitating this beautiful celebration. That's all I could really say.
Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you very much. As you know, Rhoda is one of the most prominent figures in our in London, British Somalilanders. And she did a lot of things for our country. And she even met the Queen, by the way. So I must, we're very proud of her.
I actually forgot to mention that Hamish Wilson is also the only non-Somali who is with the SNM. He's an SNM veteran.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, long time, yeah.
Yeah, throughout.
He was a good friend.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I wasn't the only one. There was one Ethiopian man
called
Girma. Okay. we used to call ourselves the S&M Foreign Legion. Two of us.
That's a good joke.
Girma used to work for Mohammed Abu Sitta before the war.
Yeah.
And when the fighting started in he had to stay in with the S&M, and he used to fix all the radios for Radio Halgan. So yeah.
Hamish, we must come to your place and see the heritage, the Somaliland heritage there.
Degmo.
I know that.
Yeah.
Well,
we will see.
Please, yes. Yeah. And actually, at the moment, I'm working.
I'm very curious about that.
With the museum in Hargeisa, we're trying to build actually an exhibition for the whole of Somaliland.
Good.
Okay.
I will meet with your friend, Saeed
Habashi.
Saeed Habashi. Yes. Alan is here.
Welcome, Alan. You are the last, Thank you very much. You are a long-time friend of Somaliland, a staunch Somaliland friend. Thank you very much. Welcome to the floor.
Thank you very much indeed. It's an absolute pleasure to join you this afternoon. I find it very difficult, though, because I'm still only 16 years old, to believe that it's 30 years since Somaliland gained its independence. And it is I remember saying something like this 10 years after, that it's absolutely remarkable that Somaliland has had its independence, has reconstructed its democracy, has shown what it means to build in democratic institutions, and it's a whole 10 years. Now it's a whole 30 years. Where did those 30 years go? It is a remarkable achievement, but it does say a great deal about the resilience of the character of Somalilanders, that you have managed such a singular achievement. And of course, the hidden war that led up to the need to develop a fresh approach for Somaliland did lead to a lot of Somalilanders ending up in Cardiff. And I really strongly value the contribution that they make to our culture here in Wales. And I know that that view is shared. I believe you'll have already heard from Vaughan Getting, our member of the Senedd and a leading member of the Welsh Cabinet, and from Stephen Doughty, our Member of Parliament, because you know that you have their strong support as well. And in view of Stephen's frontbench responsibilities in terms of Africa, that's significant in more than just a local way. The contribution is tremendous, actually. In the Butte Town area of Cardiff, of course, we have local councillor Saeed Ibrahim. I believe Saeed's on the core as well. And he is a tremendous voice for the community in Cardiff, and a great friend, and of course a professional youth worker like myself. So he makes a great contribution, currently chairing the Commission on Racial Equality in Cardiff, a very, very significant and important role. But returning to the situation with Somaliland, it was great to see the photographs of presidents of, I believe it was Djibouti and Ethiopia, meeting and speaking about the future. It's still very, very strange that Somaliland has not been recognized formally by other countries, by the international community. But you may not be recognized, that formal word recognition, but you are respected. And that respect has been hard won over a long period of time. On occasions, I was able to assist in getting that heard on the floor of the House of Commons by a Prime Minister in the presence of a president in the visitors' gallery. It still doesn't get you where you need to be, but all I want to do today is to thank you for inviting me and to congratulate the people and the government of Somaliland on a remarkable demonstration of democratic capacity and the fact that the belief in yourselves can lead you to the right place. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Alan Michael. Thank you very much for always. I must thank everybody, all of you, James Carver, Hamish, Toby, Alan, all the diaspora, Somaliland diaspora. I have to thank them very much. I have to thank my staff, the staff here in the mission, with the supervision of our ambassador, Abdullahi Hirsi, who is now at the moment zooming us from Hargeisa. Ambassador, can you come in?
All right. Thanks for everyone. Thanks to Hamish Wilson. Thanks to Saeed Ibrahim, Toby Canyon, and James Carver, Safia from Sheffield, Abdul Rashid, Noura Ali, chairman of the SSE, Abdul Rahman, Alan Michael,
Alex Taylor,
and Rhoda Ibrahim, the staff of the mission. Okay, who else? Did I left anybody?
James Carver.
James Carver.
I've got to mention.
Yeah, did I left anybody? Sadiq. Okay, all right. Yeah, Jihad. So thanks for everybody, and thank you to all. And inshallah, we will see each other another time.